Well, hi there. So I ran into this terrible but super viral video about green anacondas the other day.
Yeah, I think it's time we finally make a video on the final boss of all snakes. Meet the green anaconda. For the Amazon ecosystem, this is basically the Grim Reaper covered in scales. First off, they get up to 30 feet long and 550 pounds apiece. Heaviest snake on planet Earth. And they're ambush hunters. 550 pounds and they have to use surprise attacks. That's some bullshit. Especially when that surprise includes a 900-pound bite force from a mouth that's filled with razor-sharp backward-facing teeth. So if you try to yank out, the teeth just go in deeper. On top of that, they also have the strongest constriction power of any snake on Earth as well. 90 pounds per square inch. To put that into perspective, that's equivalent to a school bus sitting on your chest. Your bones will become dust. And then, they swallow their prey whole. And that could be anything. We're talking black caiman, deer, mountain lions, and in some cases, even jaguars. Moral of the story, if you ever go to the Amazon, enjoy it. Just watch out for these river titans. I won't be going to the Amazon. And as always, follow for more facts.
Yeah. If you're pretty into snakes, you probably caught quite a few pieces of glaring misinformation in that video. It was honestly so bad that I actually checked to make sure that this guy wasn't the same guy who writes the Who Would Win books. It's not, but since this video has more views than the 3 most viewed videos on this channel combined, I thought I'd better do something to combat this viral misinformation. My name is Clint Laidlaw, by the way. I have a PhD in biology, as well as master's and undergraduate degrees in biology and zoology. With my wonderful wife, Leisha, I own and operate a reptile-centered educational center called Clint's Reptile Room in Springville, Utah, where we, among other things, correct misconceptions that people often have about snakes. And with videos like this one circulating around, it looks like we will have work for a long time. So this video is about the green anaconda, which is the most massive snake alive today, though not nearly as long or massive as this guy seems to think. So let's run through the claims made in this video and find out which ones are accurate and which ones are insane. Okay, so first of all, he claims that the green anaconda is the final boss of all snakes, which seems like a stretch. I've spent weeks deep in the Amazon rainforest looking for snakes, and I will tell you that anacondas were not at all the snakes that I was most worried about. If for no other reason than that there are no confirmed reports of anyone, anywhere, ever being killed by one. Which is astounding. They certainly have the tools to do it, and it wouldn't blow my mind if it had happened. The reality is that anacondas are one of the very few species of snakes on the planet that would consider someone the size of a human to be a possible source of food. That still doesn't mean that they could eat a human. Humans are a very difficult shape for snakes to swallow. But I wouldn't be shocked to find out that at some point in history, an anaconda killed and swallowed a small, narrow-shouldered, pointy-headed person and escaped into the water undetected. But a snake that has rarely, if ever, killed anyone doesn't seem like a proper final boss. I was much more concerned about bushmasters and fertilances than anacondas. We were in very remote locations. A bite from a bushmaster, though they are very chill, would have been catastrophic. And fertilances are not chill at all and tend to hang out near habitations. They kill a lot of people every year. And those are not the scariest snakes in the world, if you ask me. That said, the claims of being an apex predator of the Amazon is more justifiable. Black caiman and jaguars have to be in the running as well. He reports that anacondas are 30 feet long and weigh 550 pounds. The problem is that the longest wild anaconda on record was 5.21 meters, or 17 feet 1 inch long, and weighed 97.5 kilos, or just over 214 pounds. The largest captive anaconda was a touch larger at 6.32 meters, which is just a touch under 21 feet long. It's a big snake, but about half the size that he is suggesting. There are unconfirmed reports of anacondas the size he's describing, but there is literally more physical evidence for Bigfoot than for these snakes. But despite being less than half the size of his claims, green anacondas are still the heaviest snakes on record, at least in the wild. Though Burmese pythons in particular do give them a run for their money. And in captivity, I think the most massive snake ever verified was a Burmese python. So green anacondas are unquestionably the heaviest of all extant boas and have a legitimate claim on the heaviest of all snakes, but aren't even close to as heavy as he said. And this is far from his wildest claim. That would be his claim about their bite force. But I do want to mention that though they are not 550 pounds, it is correct that anacondas are ambush predators. Anacondas are big and heavy and not fast. The movie Anaconda was way off about this. If you are 10 feet from an anaconda and you know it's there, you are in no danger. The only way that they're going to be able to catch large, fast-moving prey is by catching them by surprise. Okay, so let's talk about that 900-pound bite force. If you want to show people that you know nothing about snakes without saying that you know nothing about snakes, start telling people that snakes have powerful jaws. Snakes have insanely weak jaws. Their jaws are stretchy as heck, which is why they can swallow such large objects. But all that mobility very much comes at the expense of strength. Now, I will say that when I Googled the measured bite force of an anaconda, the first thing that popped up was 900 psi from a website called futureengineers.org. So probably don't get your biology information from a child who plans to be an engineer in the future, especially if the sentence right above the claim includes the word alligators. I can find few if any studies listing the actual measured bite forces of any snakes, but what I could find shows, rather unsurprisingly, that snakes have a considerably lower bite force for their head size than do other lizards. There's just something about having limited jaw musculature, an unfused lower jaw, and points of articulation everywhere that are not conducive to great bite force. Anacondas seem to have skulls generally less than 6 inches long, which is considerably shorter than a Komodo dragon skull at over 8 inches. And yet even Komodos have a measured bite force far under 900 psi. Anacondas aren't biting chunks out of prey, just holding on. That is what those rear-facing teeth are all about. Though this picture that he shows is an African rock python, not an anaconda. If there's any truth to the claim, it is probably because they are measuring the closing pressure of the jaws over the surface area of the tips of the teeth. It isn't a lot of total strength, but over that little surface area, the pounds per square inch look more formidable. Just like if you push with 1 pound of force onto a needle. If the tip of that needle is 1/9,000th of a square inch, then that would be 9,000 psi. Of course, he doesn't even say psi. He says 900 pounds. That said, I would be surprised if the average human couldn't pry open the jaws of an anaconda. As for the claim of 90 psi constriction power, this should reveal to you why that 9,000 psi number was so misleading. The crushing force that this animal can generate with its entire body dwarfs by far the bite force. That said, I can find no actual data to support the claim of 90 psi crushing force. Based on studies that have been done with reticulated pythons and Burmese pythons, a snake with a diameter the size of an exceptionally large anaconda would exert about 12 psi of constriction power. That's over a lot of square inches, but it's about 83 kilopascals of force. That's over 3,000 pounds of total force. And boas are, in general, stronger for their size than our pythons. So it's likely to be more than this estimate. But at the end of the day, constricting snakes kill by stopping blood flow, not by turning your bones to dust. They can't do this, and it wouldn't be a benefit to them if they could. If you're in the Amazon, watch out for anacondas, but mostly because you would hate to miss out on seeing an anaconda. Now, he invited us to follow for more facts, so should we check out a few more of his snake videos to see if they're any better? At Clint's Reptiles, we care deeply about partnering with organizations that share our values, curiosity, honesty, and critical thinking. That's exactly why Ground News has been a longtime partner. Earlier today, I posted this on social media. I said we lived in a time when information was easier to obtain than ever. We currently live in a time when it is easier to exclusively obtain information that agrees with your presuppositions than ever. We are entering a time when falsehoods will be indistinguishable from reality. Hard to say we're moving in a positive direction. But if you don't want to be stuck in an echo chamber, that's what Ground News is for. It helps you see information that wouldn't be shown to you by the algorithms and helps you tease out truth from lies. A recent headline has sparked strong reactions. Danish zoo seeks small pet donations to nourish its carnivores. It's a difficult story that raises questions about ethics, ecology, and animal care. But depending on where you read it, you'll get a polarizing mix of headlines. Some focus on outrage, others on responsibility and natural predator behavior. The facts stay the same, but the framing changes everything. That's where Ground News stands out. Their bias comparison feature lets you see every version of a story side by side so that you can understand not just what's being said, but why. The Nobel Peace Center calls it an excellent way to stay informed, avoid echo chambers, and expand your worldview. Using our link, ground.news/Clint, you can try it for yourself and get 40% off the Vantage plan, which is only $5 a month. That's ground.news/Clint for unlimited access to every feature, including bias ratings, source comparisons, and the blind spot feed. It's tools like that that help people see the world more clearly and ask better questions. A big thanks to our friends at Ground News for supporting our channel and to you for watching. Now back to the video.
So over here, I'm turning my back to a black mamba. I'm turning my back to black mamba.
I think we have different definitions of the word safe. Before you do that, there's some things you should know. Meet the black mamba. This thing is basically a living delete button, and they're considered to be the most dangerous snake in all of Africa. And for a good reason. First off, this is the fastest venomous snake on planet Earth. They can slither 13 miles an hour. You know what the average sprinting speed of a human is? 14 miles an hour. In other words, the difference of you going home in your car versus in a wooden box could just be 1 mile an hour. Better grab your good shoes. Not to mention, they could strike faster than we could blink. And they don't strike just one time. They could bite you up to 12 times in a matter of seconds. It's like a venomous Gatling gun. And just one of those bites can unload up to 400 milliliters of venom. It only takes 10 milliliters to put you on the news. But then again, I mean, they do have a 100% fatality rate if the bite goes untreated. And it only takes 30 minutes. Coming from a guy who lives 40 minutes away from the nearest hospital, respectfully, you've lost your mind. And as always, follow for more facts.
Okay, so that one started off well and then went insane. Let's dig into those claims. So his first claim is that it is not safe to turn your back on a black mamba. And that's not untrue. Hanging out in close proximity to a black mamba is not a completely safe activity. It is the snake species that I find to be the most intimidating on Earth. They are very venomous and astoundingly athletic, which is a recipe for a very scary snake. That said, they don't want to fight you. I think what the video he's reacting to is trying to do is dispel the myth that they will attack you if you turn your back on them. That is something common for larger cats. Most cats will not attack you from the front, but if you turn your back on them, they will totally attack. And the reason that they attack is because they see you as prey. A black mamba does not see you as prey. If a mamba confronts you, it is because it's afraid of you. And for good reason. I mean, if you decide to stomp a black mamba to death, there is literally nothing it can do to stop you. And the fact that you might die sometime later doesn't make it feel any better about getting killed right now. So they stand up tall, flatten their neck like a cobra, and bluff charge. Their best chance of avoiding death in a conflict with a human is to scare the human away. The reality is that a human that slowly turns its back on you is probably a less scary human than one facing you. But I would still not recommend being in a room with a black mamba that you're not watching. I mean, this is a living delete button after all, arguably. Far more people in Africa are bitten and die from viper bites than from mamba bites. Vipers generally are cryptically colored, sedentary ambush predators that get stepped on by humans rather regularly. As no venomous snakes on this planet would see a human as prey, stepping on one is the best way to get a snake to fight you. And mambas tend to run away when humans get close, so it is just harder to run into one than it is into a viper. And I would rather run into a black mamba than a Cape buffalo, a leopard, a lion, a rhino, an elephant, a hippo, or a crocodile. So while I think this is probably the hardest snake in the world to handle safely, Africa has a lot of much scarier delete buttons. And I think it would be very difficult to make the case that this is the most dangerous snake in Africa. It is, however, not only the fastest venomous snake on Earth, but the fastest snake period when slithering. Though their top speed seems to be around 10 miles per hour, not the 13 that he claimed. A few sources will list speeds as fast as 12 miles per hour, but I don't think that they've been experimentally verified. If it is possible, it would only be for the Usain Bolt of black mambas. Usain Bolt could run almost 28 miles per hour for the record. Most human adults sprint at more like 17 to 18, though 14 might be accurate as an average of all humans. The truth is that you can probably outrun a black mamba, especially on a slick floor like the one this guy was on. However, on sand, you probably couldn't outrun a sidewinder. Multiple sidewinding snakes are faster than black mambas, but only when they're sidewinding across sand. Across varied terrain, black mambas are your speed champions. And they really do bite rapidly and often repeatedly. Still a slower strike than you would see from most vipers, but this is a quick snake, and the blink of an eye is not crazy fast, especially if you're tired. Now, his numbers with regards to venom yield are insane. I don't know if anyone has ever been bitten by a black mamba 12 times in a row, but I suppose that this is hypothetically possible. But then he makes it sound like each of those bites might deliver 400 milliliters of venom. That's almost half a liter of venom. I believe the snake with the largest venom glands is the gaboon viper, which can produce at most about 10 milliliters of venom. So the highest venom yield for any snake ever is less than 1/40th of the reported amount here. So he is exaggerated by at least 40 times, but actually much more. For one thing, if gaboon vipers would be to unload all 9.7 milliliters of venom that they could possibly have, well, all subsequent bites would be dry bites. Venom takes time to produce. That's why venomous snakes will often not give you any when they bite. It's not for you. They'll only give you some if it seems like they have no other recourse. So if it was actually true that one of those bites could upload up to 400 milliliters of venom, which is untrue by at least a factor of 40, but let's just say that it was true, well, then all of the subsequent bites would be irrelevant. Nothing would be left. Of course, the actual wet yield of a black mamba seems to be less than 0.4 milliliters, which means that he would have been off by a factor of 1,000. That's like saying you're a millionaire when in reality you have $1,000. So where the heck is he getting this insane number? He got his units wrong. Venom yield for mambas is usually reported in milligrams, not milliliters. And 400 milligrams of venom is often reported as the most ever. Though 100 to 120 milligrams seems to be much more normal. And 1 milliliter of water weighs about 1 gram, or 1,000 milligrams. Since venom has a very similar density to water, 1,000 milligrams of venom is about equal to 1 milliliter. So 0.4 milliliters of wet venom weighs about 400 milligrams. If you think that 1 milliliter equals 1 milligram, or if you don't notice that the units are in milligrams and not milliliters, then you might report 400 milligrams as 400 milliliters, which again is 1,000 times more than the reality. And while 400 milliliters of venom probably would kill you in half an hour, as he claimed, generally it is more like 7 to 15 hours. I've seen this 100% fatality rate for untreated bite statistic for years, but have never seen any data to back it up. Studies done before we had effective antivenom showed a 43% death rate. And while 10 milliliters will almost certainly kill you, they don't make anywhere near that much. You would need to be bitten by dozens of black mambas in a single sitting to get that much venom. The LD50 in mice, or the amount of venom needed to kill 50% of mice, is 0.32 or 0.33 milligrams per kilo. If that holds for humans, then for a human my size, it would take roughly 24 milligrams. And given that they produce generally 100 to 120 milligrams, that would be plenty. Okay, let's do another.
Now, most of the comments are geared towards the fact that this is probably AI. You're wrong. Meet the reticulated python. It's basically the King Kong of nope ropes, getting over 30 feet long. This thing could probably eat you. I'm sorry, I should think more positive. I'm positive they could eat you. It's actually the only snake in the world with video documentation of them consuming a human. And that's just the beginning. They'll eat dogs and deer and pigs and sun bears. A snake eating a bear. Nature, what are we doing? But the scary part is not what they hunt. It's how they hunt. First off, they find their prey using infrared sensors and directional smelling, so they could smell which direction their prey is. And then they ambush the poor fellow with a super fast strike. Now they don't have fangs. They have something worse. About 100 needle-like teeth that face backwards. In other words, if you try to yank free, the teeth go in deeper. So fun. And once they have their prey in their mouth, they start coiling around it, prepared to squeeze their HP straight to zero. They can squeeze so hard that they literally crush your bones and your organs. And then they swallow their prey whole. I'm supposed to put a joke here, but I can't stop thinking about a snake swallowing a bear. I'm traumatized. And as always, follow for more facts.
Okay, so I think he's right that this is not AI. You can see pretty clearly that this is a reticulated python by the pattern. It's pretty clearly dead based on how bloated it is, how it is moving in the current, and the fact that it's upside down. No live python is going to move like that. So that is what it is. We don't have any real objects for scale, but later in the video, if you see the full version, the camera pans out and it looks like this is a large but not unreasonably large reticulated python. Reticulated pythons, as we already discussed, are the longest snakes in the world. But they aren't even the heaviest pythons, let alone snakes. So if King Kong is the tallest, but not the heaviest of the giant apes, then I'm cool with that comparison. The longest snake I have ever handled was a 22-foot, 220-pound female reticulated python at Reach Out Reptiles a few months ago. It's a heck of a snake. And that's getting really close to the maximum observed size for them. Over 25 feet does on rare occasions happen, though we've never observed one that long in the wild. There has long been a large cash reward for anyone with a snake of any kind over 30 feet, but nobody has ever attempted to collect it. So his claim that they get over 30 feet long is totally unfounded. I'm pretty sure he does go to the Jerry Pelota School of Online Research. And a lot more people are getting their information from them than from me, so make of that what you will. But at least he wasn't off by a factor of 1,000 again. Reticulated pythons get up to 25,000 feet long! And one was once found with the Millennium Falcon and a bunch of Minox living in its stomach. Now I am going to guarantee that the dead snake in this video could not eat you. But it is true that reticulated pythons do, on occasion, kill and eat somebody. They are the only snake about which that is verifiably true. And we do have video documentation of such an incident, and since they're the only snakes that do it at all, his claim that this is the only snake with video documentation of them having consumed a human is almost certainly true. They do eat dogs, deer, pigs, and on at least one occasion, an emaciated 23-kilo sun bear. So all of that is true, though I think when people imagine a bear being eaten, they picture a healthy bear weighing considerably more than 50 pounds. The reality is nowhere near as difficult to imagine. The truth is that it's much harder to eat a human than a small starved bear. We're just such a bad shape for swallowing whole. And they do use infrared sensors and directional smelling to find their prey. The pits on their lips, called labial pits, detect infrared light, which is emitted by almost everything warm, so they effectively see heat with those. This is typical of most pythons, boas, and pit vipers, though pit vipers do it with loreal pits. Directional smelling is typical of all snakes, and many non-snake squamates as well, such as Leonard here. The fork in the tongue is what makes this possible. They stick the tongue out to collect chemicals from the air and then insert the tongue into the Jacobson's organ in the roof of the mouth to analyze those chemicals. Since the tongue has two forks, it can be determined if the signal is stronger on one fork than the other, giving them directional smelling. It's super cool, but far from unique to reticulated pythons. They have a fairly fast strike, but it's not insanely fast for a snake. And it is true that they have no fangs, but I'm not sure I would consider 100 needle-like teeth with no venom worse than 2 hypodermic teeth with neurotoxic venom that paralyzes your breathing and stops your heart, or cytotoxic venom that melts your flesh. I would argue that if they are worse, it's just because they can get so large. That said, in the range of reticulated pythons, many orders of magnitude more people are killed or seriously injured by fangs than by reticulated python teeth. And as we discussed before, they don't tend to crush your bones and organs, they just inhibit blood flow. Retics do not have the same power as green anacondas, so we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 psi. That won't feel good applied all over your entire body. It will kill you, but not by crushing you to death. And they do swallow their prey whole. I know of only one snake that doesn't. I think this one was a bit less terrible than the other two, but it was far from not terrible. So let's give him one more chance.
That is the last danger noodle you want to make angry. Let me tell you something. Meet the king cobra. You can only find them in Asia, and it's the largest venomous snake on planet Earth, getting up to 20 feet long. That's 3 copies of LeBron James stacked on top of each other. No thank you. But the crazy part is they're not actually a species of cobra at all. They get the name king cobra because their primary food source is other smaller cobras. They eat cobras. I would put that on my resume. But it's not just cobras. They'll eat all kinds of snakes, including various pit vipers, banded kraits, pythons. In fact, there was one documented case of one consuming a reticulated python. That's a reticulated python. Mix all of that with the fact that when they bite, they deliver enough venom to take down a full-grown elephant, and you'll understand why they're in a class of their own. Moral of the story, there's snakes, there's venomous snakes, and then there's the king. And as always, follow for more facts.
Okay, well that one didn't go better. I'll start off. I'm not sure that the king cobra is the last danger noodle that you'll want to make angry. I would rather upset a king cobra than a black mamba, for example. But it is a bad one to upset for sure. Though it is kind of funny that when he tells us to meet the king cobra, he shows us a picture of not a king cobra. And I want to show you quickly how to identify a king cobra and how to differentiate it from a true cobra like the one in the picture. My first giveaway was the hood, as it is much shorter and broader than the long, comparatively narrow hood of king cobras. But the dead giveaway was the head scalation. If you look at this snake, you will see that after the rostral scale, it has like a 4 square court, and then 3 scales between the eyes, and 2 more large scales behind those. All elapids have these 9 scales. So king cobras and true cobras both have them. But if you look at the head of a king cobra, you will notice that behind those 9 scales are 2 more large scales, called the occipital scales. True cobras do not have these, and this snake clearly doesn't have them. Hard to fault him too much for this one, not too many people know this. And when I searched this image, I got nothing but websites including National Geographic Kids calling it a king cobra. But it isn't. And now you're a little bit better than the staff at National Geographic at IDing king cobras. Just unfortunate to say, meet the king cobra while showing an image of something that isn't a king cobra. Meet the alligator snapping turtle. See, it looks bad. Thunder's a common snapping turtle, just for the record. King cobras are found exclusively in Asia, though their range is quite large. They're only the largest venomous snakes, if reticulated pythons are the largest of all snakes. Gaboon vipers are likely heavier. And there is no record of a king reaching 20 feet, though 5.85 meters is pretty close. Roughly as long as 3 LeBron Jameses stacked on top of one another, but only weighing about 1/3 as much as 1 LeBron James. Impressively, he knew that king cobras aren't true cobras, even if he didn't always know that true cobras aren't king cobras. But his reason was a little sus, you know? King cobras are not true cobras because they're more closely related to mambas than they are to cobras. They just look a lot like a cobra because their hood is more distinctive than is the hood of mambas, though mambas do have a hood, but no occipital scales. King cobras are the hagfish of mambas, and thus not cobras. King comes from the fact that they eat other snakes. Snake-eating snakes are often referred to as king snakes. King cobras do eat other cobras, other king cobras, and all snakes of swallowable size. Also other lizards as well as birds and rodents. In most places, cobras likely make up some small part of their diet, but not a huge part. It probably just depends on the abundance of cobras in the area. It isn't like they prefer cobras over other snakes. And it isn't exceptional that they eat reticulated pythons. There isn't just one documented case of them eating a reticulated python. Heck, the picture he shows when he mentions this fact is a king cobra eating a reticulated python. But then he cuts to a picture of an adult reticulated python and suggests that this is what they eat. They don't eat adult reticulated pythons. They eat young reticulated pythons. If a king cobra ate a large adult reticulated python, it would die. But what wouldn't die would be an elephant. The LD50 in mice for king cobra venom is 1.28 milligrams per kilogram. If you're paying attention, you will notice that their venom is way less potent than is the venom of black mambas. It's also less potent than most true cobras, but they do make a lot of it. They can deliver 400 to 600 milligrams in a bite. Way more than real mambas, but obviously way less than he thinks mambas can deliver. He thinks the first couple of feet of a mamba is just venom glands. Asian elephants, the elephants that king cobras encounter, are smaller than African elephants. And cows are smaller than bulls at about 2,700 kilos. So to kill the smallest adult elephant, if the LD50 of mice translates to elephants, you would need 2,700 times 1.28 milligrams, which is about 3,456 milligrams of venom. Given that the high-end yield for a king cobra is about 600 milligrams, you would need at least 6 high-producing adult king cobras to simultaneously bite the smallest adult elephant to have a 50% chance of killing it. Which might explain why there are no documented cases of elephants ever dying from snakebite. Kings being no exception. They're in a genus of their own, but not a class of their own. And by the way, there are snakes, there are venomous snakes, and king cobras are one of them. Oh, and the snake that he shows while delivering this line. Not a king cobra. As always, like and subscribe. We hope to see you real soon. And should we watch more of this guy's videos in the future? I'd like to take a moment just to thank our patrons on Patreon. You guys do so much to help us keep expanding, keep growing in the types of videos that we make. Obviously, this is a brand new one, and we're trying to correct a lot of misinformation that exists in the world. We can do this thanks to you guys. Thank you so much. Plus, we've got a whole extra video for our Stinkin' Rad fans on Patreon. And obviously, our patrons get early access to all the videos. So if you're interested in these features or just supporting us making more content like this, please consider checking it out.